Hello, welcome to this very special episode of Experience Exchange. We have John Bultena, who is a writing professor at UC Merced and an occult metalhead, as well as a local podcaster, host of the podcast More Than Metal. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jen.
Yeah, would you like to say a little bit more about yourself for folks that maybe are not familiar with you and your work?
Well, I grew up in Merced, lived here almost all my life except for school. I've been working in upper higher education, if you will, for the last, way too long, 20 years. My hobbies, I've been a big fan of analog gaming, so role-playing games, miniature games for a long time. I just got off a stint at UC Merced teaching classes about tabletop role-playing games for the last 5-6 years. Going back to teaching and writing though. But in my downtime, I really enjoy music. I really enjoy delving into underneath it, behind it. I'm a big fan of heavy metal, and there is a very distinct kind of sub. I don't know if I want to call it a genre, more of like an aesthetic or a theme. Sometimes it is a practice even of occultism in music, and heavy metal certainly has a rep. We'll call it a rep. I think that's a fair way to put it. So I got some stuff to talk about with that to you today about. That'll be kind of fun. And then, my podcast, More Than Metal, I've been doing it with my friend Bailey Crow for the last year or so. We talk about metal and more. We don't just talk about heavy metal, but we talk about kind of what goes on around it, the culture of it. We talk to people. We're not just metalheads. We like everything, and it's a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun with her doing it over the last year. It's been a blast, and we look forward to doing more. So, thank you.
Yeah. And for the folks that care, you are a Pisces, but you don't necessarily subscribe to astrology, correct?
I'm not big on it. I get it. I understand it. I get why people like it. If you're into it, you're into it. I'm not going to tell people don't. I'm just going to be like, oh, okay, it's not for me.
Yeah.
And that's all right,
Yeah, for sure. One archetype, we were talking about archetypes off camera. Archetype of Pisces is that they are big art lovers. So I'm like, I see the through line.
I'm not going to deny there's some truth to it by any stretch of imagination. I've had people tell me about it. I remember in high school, my friends doing, looking at readings and everything for me. And, it lines up some regard by all means, but, that's fun. Let's go. Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah, but I'm more excited to tap into your expertise on this show, not so much dive into your astrology. So first, let's get into a common language if folks maybe aren't sure what metal is. I know this is a charged question, but what is metal, or how would you describe it to someone?
I'm going to give you the corniest answer, which is there's a lot of answers, questions like what do you mean by heavy metal or metal even? And metal is simply music that's harder than rock. I told you it's cheesy. It is a cornball answer, and that's what a lot of it is. It becomes kind of an abrasive thing. You have a lot of people talk about how does it originate, and they'll go and point to Black Sabbath by all means, and it's a really interesting history of what they create becoming metal. But there is a prehistory to it we call proto-metal, where you have guys like the Crazy World of Arthur Brown, you have Coven, you have a bunch of people kind of before that doing stuff that has semblances of it, but they never really go over the top with it. They don't do a whole song of it, or they don't do a whole album of it like Black Sabbath does. And with Sabbath is interesting because their sound kind of arises out of necessity. And it's a really interesting piece too, especially for me personally, because it's a piece of disability history with Black Sabbath. Is that
interesting?
Yeah, if you're not familiar, they basically kind of get signed or get ready to do an album, get ready to record, and Tony Iommi's he's working in a factory and he gets his fingers cut off, his last day, and has to go record.
Oh shit!
Yeah, there's very much a kind of you'll hear about things called the Hand of Doom once in a while. If you go online, look at the Hand of Doom in heavy metal, you'll see a hand with the fingers cut off. That's Tony's hand.
Wow.
Yeah, so he got him cut off, and then he built his own prosthetics out of wax around the house, and went and recorded. And to kind of maneuver around his playing style, he starts using lower end amps, bass amps, to play guitar through, and develops this very heavy, deep sound that you can see with Black Sabbath, and the rest is history. But that's kind of how metal becomes solidified as a thing, and over the years it evolves into heavy metal, which is just a heavier version of it, a harder version of it. It's fun. It's and then you have all these subgenres, and we can get into all that. There's tons and tons of subgenres, all of which essentially I just kind of think of as they're just fetishizations of specific sounds that Black Sabbath made at one point. So they take that and run with it and really turn up that section of it. So it's a lot of fun. But I don't know how to like define the sounds. Usually guitars, drums, bass. But you don't have to have all those things. I've seen heavy metal bands that have no guitarist. They have just a bass. I've seen heavy metal that is done on nothing but a cello and drums. So it's a very open-ended field in terms of what you want to get out of it. So yeah, is that decent? Is that a decent?
Yeah,
that was okay answer? Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
I think that's great for the folks that maybe don't know what metal is. For the folks that were born in the like 90s, 2000s like me, our introduction to metal was nu metal.
Yeah, nu metal.
Yeah. So bands like Limp Bizkit, Alien Ant Farm, Korn. Yeah, for sure.
I saw Papa Roach here in Merced, back in high school. I mean, there was a band that went up and down the valley. Everyone saw them. Everyone kind of knew them. It's the nu metal stuff is interesting because it's this kind of like shift off of the grunge scene, which the grunge music for the most part is just kind of like punk, but it's kind of like done in a way that's like a little more like it focuses on like less on like the aesthetics of the punk, which punk got really tied with the aesthetics, which it doesn't have to have, but it kind of runs with that. And the nu metal is kind of like they kind of want to bring in hip hop and everything, and some of it does that, some of it doesn't, but it becomes a lot like more like focused around like bass guitar and power chords. And what's weird about nu metal is it kind of becomes this label that like gets assigned to certain bands, but it's like they're not nu metal. Like Bailey on the podcast, we did a episode about the band Dead Sea. And Dead Sea got lumped into nu metal because of who they were playing with. But like we listened to it, we're like, this isn't nu metal. Like this is not. It's like more like synth, like glam, heavy glam synth metal. Like it's at the best. So it's not. It's just weird how it just becomes this buzz term that doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day. And the like. But yeah, no, nu metal was. I mean, it was huge. Don't get me wrong. I had a lot of those albums and they were fun. I think the first Korn album is still pretty good. Yeah.
How did you get into metal? Were your parents also cool metalhead?
No. That's actually one of the biggest misconceptions I get, and this is actually one thing that's really interesting about our podcast. Bailey's family is very musically oriented. I'll say that to say the least. And my family, we didn't really listen to a lot of music in the house except around Christmas. I actually have a large Christmas record collection at home because I love Christmas records. Like it's so much fun to put them on. Oh, they're a blast, man. They're great. Kitty Wells Christmas stuff, Johnny Cash's Christmas stuff. I like country, old school country Christmas, but like even the Brian Seltzer Orchestra Christmas records really good. One of the best recent Christmas records actually is Billy Idol's. Billy Idol, the old punk rock dude is great. But that was one time we really listened to music. We listened in the car and whatever, and that was just like whatever. I think the only tapes we listened to on the road, we listened to Neil Diamond on long trips.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and you can't go wrong on Neil. Neil Diamond's like the bomb. That's great stuff. So, but no, not really. I actually, when I started collecting records, I went through my dad's record collection. And they had a few. I knew there was the Christmas records, but there were some other ones in there. And I actually pulled a original pressing of Bob Dylan's "The Times Are Changing," the mono recordings. It was a very, very early one. And I asked him where he got. Yeah, it's not a.
That's a rare find.
It's pretty rare find. And I asked him where he got it. He got it. His friend gave it to him in college, and I was like, oh, "Dude, did you ever listen to this?" He's like, "Yeah, I did once, but it's a bunch of hippie shit." And so I was like, "Okay, fair enough." So that's kind of like music for me was more found through like media and culture and friends. And I really explored a lot. I was really, the bands I really first got into, where I started actually buying the music myself, aside from pop stuff, like, I had MC Hammer and Paul Abdul when I was a kid, because that stuff's awesome. But, like Weezer and Pearl Jam, and when Nirvana came on the scene, we saw that it could be something I didn't have to, like, you have to do this big production to be the person. You could just kind of be who you wanted to. And then in high school, I got really into industrial goth music, and I listened to that all through college. And then when I went back to college again for my terminal degree at UCLA, I was kind of in a hard time in my life. My mom had just passed, and I really wanted to listen to something uplifting. As I got into power metal, and I got into that through like hearing Dragon Force, but then
I love Dragon Force.
Dragon Force is okay as an introduction, but Dragon Force is not the be all end all of power metal. Yeah. They're wannabe Rhapsody of Fire, and they're not as good as Rhapsody of Fire, but that's another story. But I got into that, and that really uplifted me. And from there, I kind of started branching into more music and listening to stuff that was slower and heavier, and just like went from there. Whatever's tickling my fancy, just this sounds good. Let's go try it out. And I think and a lot of it was self curated. It wasn't guided through an algorithm. It wasn't like a playlist on Spotify. It was just like me checking out bands and who of their people worked with also. Oh, they worked with these guys, let's go check out what that sounds like. This guy played in this band, let's go check out that band. And they opened up for these guys, let's go open up for that. And that's not dissimilar to how, like, when you go through, like, I'm sure you've read a book. Not just, well, no, that's kind of derogatory. I'm sorry, I mean, it's derogatory like that. But I'm sure you read a book. No, I'm sure you read a book about, like, you know, something in terms of, like, spiritual elements that you're interested in, and they reference a name in that.
Yes.
And you're like, well, I'm gonna go read that person's thing. It's the same structure. You rabbit hole it, you kind of spin off of it, you cite it, and you don't let that book is not the be all end all of what you're going to read. So that's very much how I've approached music as a fan, and it's, you know, it's been rewarding, and it gives you a pretty fun knowledge. And I've seen some bands randomly that, you know, blow up, or just like, oh, that was really cool, or just go check out a show locally. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think it could be like that. So that's kind of my journey into it. Yeah.
So the way that I got into more alternative music is, you know, growing up as a kid, I was bullied because I was fat and nerdy. And so I didn't really have a lot of friends. And so I always felt like an outsider. I did grow up in LA, Chicana, you know, Mexican background. I listened to a lot of Spanish music, some like rap, hip hop, LA, of course, you can't avoid it. But then I remember I turned on MTV and I saw AFI's Miss Murder, and I was like, whoa, this stuff slaps.
Yep.
Also, that guy looks like a weirdo, and I'm also a weirdo, so I really relate to this. And this feels like, I don't know how to describe it in my 9-year-old self, but like, I feel like it touches my pain without actually like hurting me, and I like that. It's like an outlet. So then after that, yeah, I rabbit holed. I saved up like my change, and I bought December Underground, the CD, and I listened to it. And luckily I had like a Walkman, so I had headphones, and my parents weren't listening to what I was listening to, so I was able to like really explore and get away with it. And then we got internet, and you know, it just goes on from there.
That's interesting, that kind of approach. You could do it without your parents noticing it. To me, and that's an interesting element of we're talking about kind of the occult in music, is that it became occulted to you. It became hidden from what people around you knew was going on with you. There's an interview with Joanna Plothouse Sedonis from the band Lucifer, and she grew up in East Germany. She's about my age or so. And you're talking a place where a lot of music is banned. And there's this interesting interview. She talked about kind of like, I think it was in Decibel Magazine, talked about like when the first time she heard Metallica in kind of these underground clubs, and how that was viewed as very like, we had to keep this hidden, to keep this sacred, to keep this around, we had to keep it hidden from view. And she said, and I think she said something about how that kind of initially sparked her interest of the occult in music. And so I've always kind of been intrigued by that, where we kind of have that thing we have to kind of keep hidden from those around us, something like that too. And, you know, there's like the band, you also have people have like guilty pleasures. You got the band that you don't want your friends to know you're into, or whatever it is. You know, I've kind of gotten over that, but you know, when I was younger, I certainly had bands I liked that I didn't want people to know that me admitting like I like the first Korn album. That took me a while, because like, yeah, this is Korn, this is kind of crap, you know, it got the second album was okay, and the third one was but the first one's really strong. So, but I digress. Yeah,
and then Hot Topics became more popular. So then, when I was less ashamed of my music taste,
Hot Topic was like unbelievably for like shifting like culture and being a place to go in and get stuff that you couldn't get anywhere else. And now it's kind of turned into like just like a Funko Pop store essentially, and it's very corporate and everything. That's kind of a sad structure. But I also kind of get it. It's a business. They gotta make a buck. Yeah, they gotta shift. Yeah.
We talked about a new metal bubble, which we could talk about in a minute. But I think that's really when Hot Topic started to shift. But I really wanted band tees. Oh yeah. And that was a rule in my house. My dad was like, "No, you cannot wear band tees. You can't like rep anything." So as an adult, one of my ways to rebel is I wear band tees, even bands that I don't listen to. I'm like, "Give me that shit. I don't care." Yeah. It's a way to like reclaim my autonomy. So today I'm wearing my Maná shirt, which is actually a Spanish rock band. Do you know Maná?
Yeah, Maná, yeah.
Yeah, are you a fan of like Latino Spanish?
I'm not terribly familiar with them, but I know of them. I know well enough of them. They are big enough that if you're not aware of Maná, you're missing out on like a big cultural phenomenon, because like South America is really fascinating for heavy metal in terms of like there's like Iron Maiden concerts, and then there's Iron Maiden concerts in South America, and they're like it's unreal seeing how over the top they go there. Those folks, man, they get down, like they're into it. Yeah, there's a lot of really good projects come out there too, but yeah, no, Maná is huge. Yeah, that's a very, they've been around for like 3-4 decades.
Yeah, they've been around for a long time and people still love them. Funny story, we had some exchange students from Taiwan and they were a sister university. I went to Cal State Long Beach. And I heard one of them humming a Mana song and I was like, how do you know Mana? And they're like, oh yeah, we love Mana in Taiwan. I'm like, whoa, that is so random. Yeah, the power of music. But yeah, the 3 rules was no blasting like loud rock, heavy metal, anything like that. No wearing band shirts, and also no Madonna in the house. My dad was like he did not like Madonna.
Yeah, no, she pulls some blasphemy off. I mean, the Like a Prayer videos, it's blasphemous on quite a few levels. It's a lot of fun. It's a damn good video of it. Yeah.
Yeah, looking back, I was like, oh, because she was blasphemous. That's why. We grew up in a Catholic household. Yeah. Got it. Yeah. But yeah, so not only feeling like this music relates to me, like they're weird, I'm weird, I like this, I feel accepted here, but also like my intuitive occult stuff where I was like, I'm not necessarily fully agreeing with the Catholic Church. I'm starting to have some questions.
Sure.
Maybe not fully like Hail Satan like some of the songs are, but like I like that they're questioning things. I like that they're going against the status quo, even if it's performative.
So that's really interesting because I was rereading this week. I hadn't read it for a few years, but there's this book by Peter Biebergall, I think his last name is. I probably might got it wrong. Called "Season the Witch: How the Occult Saved Rock." And he kind of delves in. His basic thesis is that rock and roll music, if you look in the 50s, a lot of it's being kind of it's very sanitized, and it is fundamentally just like about like falling in love, liking hot dogs, having a nice time at the beach. It's very like very basic and very straightforward. But then you have this kind of thing that happens in the 60s and especially in the 70s where you start having like really good music. You got Zeppelin, you got Sabbath, you got Bowie doing stuff. And a lot of that is these guys are trying new things out. And a lot of that, he's arguing, comes from the occult traditions that were kind of forced into where rock music comes out of. So he goes and traces this back into the music that African people brought over to the country with the slave trade, and looking at how the stories got kind of shifted and how they would have to kind of hide their religion and then kind of match it to a Christian view or Catholic view at times. Talks about how there's kind of remapping of it all. And that occult element kind of goes through. And you can talk, the classic examples like Robert Johnson meeting the devil at the crossroads and selling his soul to play guitar. And that story had been told. That story is based on like an old African folk tale from way back with different stories. And it's not the devil; it's like a trickster god who's not necessarily evil. They're just kind of like they're kind of a jerk, but they're not necessarily a bad person. Kind of like Loki is. Loki's not always a villain in Norse mythology. He's kind of an ass. Like and so. But then the Christians are like, well, the only people we have that are asses is the devil. So like it's got to be he's got to be the devil. Yeah. And so. His argument is that these kind of experimentations into the occult through like even like guys like David Bowie start experimenting with like the space, what's out there, these aliens, Led Zeppelin. I mean, for God's sakes, like the one I mentioned this to you is like Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin bought Boleskine. That is Aleister Crowley's ancestral home. Wow. He bought his house, like his property, his estate.
Holy shit.
And owned it for like well over a decade in the 70s, 80s, I believe, or something like that. So I mean that these guys were intrigued by this stuff. And you have you also have people like you have Black Sabbath kind of experiments with it to some degree to kind of like mess with it, despite those guys being very devout Christians.
Yeah, they are.
They are very devout Christians, even Dio. But they kind of have an entertainment with that. And then you also have, what's the third person I'm thinking of? Zeppelin, and Bowie. Yeah, those are the big three. But there's a bunch of other people kind of experimenting with that. And that's what Peter argues in the book is that experimentation with ideas, and he kind of views this really kicking off with the Beatles, going and checking out the guru culture and getting that kind of stuff, and then bringing that back and saying, hey, this is okay, you can do this. And that getting people to spin out into trying new things and musically, understanding what music could sound like differently and not just being like, well, we're going to make these songs that are this way over and over again and talk about how hot dogs taste good and I like a girl. Like, that's it. Like, that's like a lot of it's just very basic of that. So, they really try some new stuff. And, and the music gets pretty damn good.
And then it really ruffles some feathers because then it spins off to like anti-establishment type music. So yeah.
that's what's interesting is this music comes out of Black culture, which a lot of that was built out of anti-establishment to try to find ways to undermine certain structures that were damaging their communities. And it has a history. It's built into it, and then the attempts to sanitize it just didn't work. Ultimately failed. So, and in each like subgenre is just kind of a pushback on something else. They want to try something new, or they want to push into some sort of new sound, or not feel limited by this one thing. Yeah, absolutely.
So when we were talking about collaborating and doing this podcast, you gave me some albums to check out. And the first one that I listened to was, let me get the name right. It was Coven's Witchcraft Destroys Minds and Reaps Souls.
Hell of a title.
Yeah.
Hell of a title.
I love it. So powerful. 1969.
So the first Black Sabbath album comes out in 69 at the end. This comes out about like 5-6 months before that. And it's a fascinating band because first off, the first track on the first song is called Black Sabbath. The other funny thing about the band too is that there's a member of the band whose name is Oz Osbourne.
Yeah, I saw that. Yes. Yeah. Not to be confused with
Ozzy Osbourne. No, it's really fascinating. Yeah, there was actually an interview with MTV did an interview with Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath and showed him the album on air, and he was like, I've never heard of these guys, and like that's kind of interesting. But the Coven kind of pops up, and really this album really pushes it. It's not what you'd call heavy metal, but it's definitely hard rock. It's a really interesting album in terms of it is very satanic oriented front to back. It is noted for its interior. Did you look at the interior gatefold of it?
I tried looking it up online, and I wasn't sure which was which.
It depicts the lead singer, Jinx Dawson, who at the time was 18, 19. She's really young at the time. Like naked on an altar.
Yes.
Like it's pretty over the top. The album is also the first photographed member of a band using the corna, this thing, the corna, what we call the horns. Prior to that, there had been a depiction of it on a Beatles album, but on Yellow Submarine, but it's like a cartoon of John Lennon. It's not actually a photo of him. So I don't know if that counts.
The first human,
the first photo, yeah. And they're all in the back doing it and everything. But the big thing is that back of that album features like a whole black mass. Like it features them invoking like a spell and doing ritualistic stuff. It's pretty wild. I actually brought samples today of my albums to show off that one. That one I didn't bring in because it's part of a box set, and it has a certificate of authenticity signed by Jinx Dawson herself in her blood.
Oh, that's hardcore.
So I didn't bring it in.
Totally understandable.
But she's still kicking around. She's still performing with Coven. That album's 57 years old, and she's still. If I showed you a photo of her now, there's very much probably made a deal with the devil type situation. Her way she looks, like it's like scary how she looks because she's in her 70s.
Looks great.
She's got to be 75, 76 now, and she posts some serious thirst traps.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, she's got a whole thing, but there's a whole kind of like aura to this album. There's ritual to it. The song kind of themes are dark. They're fun. I think Wicked Woman's probably one of the most popular songs on that album. And, it kind of goes into like, 'cause you had the previous podcast where you talked about like these kind of occult presence in the song.
The occult lyrics
Black
episode.
Magic Woman, all that kind of stuff, right? And this kind of has that, but it's a woman singing about it, which is a little more different than a guy calling her the Wicked Woman,
And I was going to say, I love that because it's a female vocalist, and I was like, that is so powerful. And then the last song in the album is called Satanic Mass, correct? Yeah, that was fascinating to listen to because it's like super crystal clear, like satanic mass happening.
They're not pulling any punches. It's an interesting album. But no, I that one really kind of kicks off it all. Or is the one that really focuses in on it, because part of that you kind of had dabbling. You had psychedelic stuff with like Arthur Brown, and you could even go into like something like Screaming Jay Hawkins with "I Put a Spell on You," and there's kind of shock rock stuff like that. But this one's actually trying to throw it out there and does it to such a degree that it's not. This isn't just like it doesn't come off as someone dabbling. It's not just the aesthetics of it. It's very much like we're going to try to inundate and like really fully make this like ritual happen on this album. Yeah, that one's that's a lot of fun. Yeah.
But one thing that I think my brain has just been so corrupted with, like screamo and new metal, that I was expecting her to go into that, and she didn't.
No.
It was more melodic. It's proto metal, really. Like,
It is absolutely 100% proto metal.
yeah.
It is
So
absolutely.
I was like, oh, this is interesting, refreshing, and really, really cool. So something that we were talking about in our pre-meeting is that a lot of the satanic panic was really like anti-feminism efforts,
Yeah.
correct? So I thought that it was really interesting to have the lead singer of Coven sing like Wicked Woman and really be like the front star of this while this satanic panic is going on.
Well, 69 wouldn't be the Satanic Panic. That doesn't really kick up into the late 70s and the 80s.
Oh, okay. So she was a little early.
Yeah. And you kind of have the Satanic Panic kind of kicks up. You have like the D&D scare, like Dallas Egbert up in Michigan. You kind of have some albums coming out that people are kind of seeing this and they're freaking out about it. And a lot of it's kind of this post people trying different religions, the cult wars as they're called, the kind of new age stuff like that too. So there's this kind of like push back on it. There's some sort of satanic thing out there that we have to go after and deal with, but it's like they can never really articulate it. And a lot of it is rooted in like it's a whole chain of things, but yeah, it's very much rooted in like fears of changes of workplaces and of the family's role and how families are set up, especially with women going to being more prevalent in the workforce, getting more education, stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that made me feel more like a weirdo and drawn to alternative scenes, the occult, etc., is the fact that I was told, like, you're a woman, you can't do this.
No.
You're a woman, you're expected to act this way. And so listening to like all of this alternative music, I'm like, yeah, I'm rebelling even though I'm in my room, like doing all these things.
No, it's true.
Yeah. So I feel that deeply. But when did we start getting into the screaming?
Well, screaming's like, screaming music's always been there, and what screaming is up for debate too. Because a lot of people, I've listened to music in my classes, and I students, well, I don't like that stuff because the guy's screaming. I'm like, he's not screaming. He's actually like projecting his voice through his throat. It's not a scream. He's not hitting certain registers. He's just pushing air through his throat. It's more of a growl, and because you can't scream for that long. The scream, I don't know. That stuff's you have people trying to push their voices and trying to do all this kind of like really interesting like people have always been doing their voices, but I don't know when it really starts. You kind of have that with like a lot of death metal guys are really into that. But even before that, there were some people kind of doing that here and there, or they just do it kind of like to vocalize a certain effect. But as far as the screamo stuff goes, that's actually not my repertoire. I'm not big into like the screamo stuff. Yeah. It took me a long time to become a fan of harsh vocals too. And once I got into them, I really got into them. It's a whole thing. And the Coven record is very much not that. I mean, Jinx has a lovely voice. She can do jazz, she can do rock, she can do all kinds of stuff. She's actually a very versatile voice. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the first album that I listened to based on your recommendation. So yeah, let's keep going through what you brought.
The next one I think I mentioned was, so I went a lot further in the future. So this was Blood Ceremonies, The Eldritch Dark.
Yeah.
This album came out in 2013.
Definitely more modern.
So I want to ask you, Jen, how would you describe the, if you want to look at this, you're welcome to, but how do you want to describe the sound of this one? For
some reason, it gave me a little bit of like a medieval flair, like what you would hear in like a medieval video game.
Yeah, the lead person, Aaliyah O'Brien, the lead singer, she's also the flautist and the organist for the band, and so I think she's got a PhD in musicology not too long ago. But she's but they're a Canadian band. This band is really interesting because it does do a lot of the occult, but a lot of it's very focused around aesthetics of the occult. I don't know what their own personal beliefs are. They don't really push that, but a lot of them are kind of based around like what you call like cult exploitation films. They have quite a few songs based around the book The Magician. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but that's the book that's like kind of a mockery of like Aleister Crowley about Oliver Hotto, and it's kind of this mockery of him. But they have a lot of like stuff based around literature that deals with the occult and magic and such. And it's a really good kind of like it is heavy metal because they do hit hard parts at points, but there's also a lot of light kind of. I don't want to say necessarily. I wouldn't call it folk. Kind of in the style of like Jethro Tull, where you have that kind of flute, it's kind of that light part. It's very easy to listen to, I find, at points too. Yeah, it was. And they have songs. They have some songs. I don't know if this is the one they have. But they have songs about like, this one's about like, The Witch, which is a really good song. Goodbye Gemini, which is about the movie Goodbye Gemini. Lord Summerisle, which is distinctly about Lord Summerisle from The Wicker Man. If you haven't seen that. Battle of the Weird Sisters, obviously something about the Weird Sisters, Drawing Down the Moon. The Magician, that's the one about Oliver Hotto. So, it's an interesting kind of thing of I was thinking about the occult in this, and you kind of people that kind of use the occult as an aesthetic.
Yes.
You have people that actually use it as like in the music as like a ritual. The Coven would kind of come into that. You have people that actually try to cast like spells fundamentally through music. So it's actually very diverse of what they're doing with it. And some of it might appeal to you, some of it might not. And it also be even not just necessarily always like about these like Eldritch or, pagan beliefs. But there's even some that even like, I think it was the next, one of the next albums I brought up actually was actually fundamentally Christian occultism. Did you listen to the Mansion record, Uncreation?
No, I didn't.
You didn't listen? Okay. So
no, I listened to it, but I don't think I caught it.
Okay. Well, so the other one I brought was, this is Mansion's Uncreation. So Mansion is a band that brings in kind of bases their aesthetic, and their whole like songs are about this Christian cult that comes, I think, out of Finland called Cartanoism in the early 20th century, and they're weird. They are kind of apocalyptic, and they're led by two women. Relation enough, there's a preacher and the mother. And it's called Cartanoism because the lead lady's last name is Cartano, which translates to the word mansion. And basically, they say the world's going to end. We need to start prepping our children to become the brides and husbands of Christ when he returns. And they were known for like training their children to preach. Like the kids would like walk into bars and like just start preaching. But at the same time, they also very much were anti having children. Like abstinence was a huge thing. And I don't want to speak for the band themselves, but the song Uncreation is about like uncreating children before they're born, we'll say.
Wow.
Yeah. So they really run, and the church lasted for a long. It's interesting one for me too, because a lot of the members of the church got after the church kind of the two main people kind of die and it goes away because it doesn't last that long. They get absorbed into like the local Lutheran churches, where I was raised as Lutheran. So it's kind of like, okay, I'm really curious about that. Why'd you guys pick the Lutherans? But that's another thing about occult is, to me, is that it doesn't necessarily have to be like non-Abrahamic. There's even bands like I've listened to like even like Islamic black metal that brings in Islamic stuff.
Wow.
There's a really good band called Cult of Fire out of Czech, the Czech Republic, that does like Hindu black metal.
Wow.
Yeah, they bring in sitar and play like the black metal style. It's really interesting, and like it's a very interesting kind of meditation. That's interesting too, because then if we're talking about that, during these different traditions, you get like other bands kind of like do this stuff where they kind of meditate through their songs. Even they're kind of exploring ideas or giving reverence and the like. But yeah, those are some of the sounds. I think those are some of the samples. The Mansion one's a little more. So that's a very that's a very obscure record. Mansion's kind of an obscure band, but. Yeah, it's interesting seeing where like some people are trying to like bring the aesthetic. I think Mansion members they don't believe in this stuff. I don't think they're of the Cartano's face at all. I think it's really fascinated by the history of it. They're from Finland. They're very interested by the history, and they want to kind of mess with the aesthetics of it and kind of play with that. And then where Bloodstone was like, we saw a bunch of cool movies as kids. We read some cool books. We saw some cool stuff. We want to talk about that. Kind of mess with that. But then you get into bands that do kind of bring in reference of respective religions. I was going to bring in the one. I think the third one I brought in for you was the Blackbraid 2.
Oh, that was my favorite.
Blackbraid 2, yeah. So this band came on the scene a few years back, and it has like basically just like blown up thoroughly. It is a Native American band out of the New York area. They have 3 albums. Each one's named 1, 2, and 3.
Which I love.
Which you love. I know you know the proper order. And they bring on a lot of kind of like, they do what's called kind of quasi folk metal. It's black metal, but it's folk metal.
Yes.
In that they bring in some like indigenous instruments here and there. You hear some woodwinds.
It's so cool. I really love that mashup.
And and it's interesting because it's black metal. So black metal initially starts up. It's kind of a weird term because the first generation of black metal doesn't sound like what we call most black metal now. That's bands like Merciful Fate, Venom, Bathory, even like arguably Slayer. And all that, the only real commonality between all those bands sound-wise is that it's just not Christian. They focus on like not Christian themes. They're not necessarily against Christianity. They're just like saying this is openly not Christian. And then you have the guys over in Scandinavia bringing in with bands like Mayhem, Emperor, etc. that bring in like make it very much about being not Christian. Is because in Norway there is like a state-sponsored church, like the church is state-sponsored. Your tax dollars go to the church in some regard, and so they feel very kind of confined by it, but a lot of trying to get back to like their indigenous religions up there, which Christianity is not a European religion; it comes from the Middle East, and so they're trying to get back to that in some regard. And then it gets spun into other things too. But yeah, the Blackbraid album, those albums, that Blackbraid 2 is my album of the year when it came out. And the third one's pretty solid, but the 2 is just front to back, such a good album. And you kind of get the spiritual elements of him, like, like it's kind of some chant elements, trying to like revere certain elements, a lot of like stuff about battle, loss. There's I think the one song on that album, I think one of my favorite songs I listen to a lot on this one is, Sadness in the Passage of Time and Memory. That song's really good. But Moss Covered Bones on the Altar of the Moon, Spells of Moon and Earth, the wolf that guides the hunter's hand is great. This kind of like getting very much in touch with these spiritual elements of like what you're doing. And I like that tradition being brought in. I like them sharing that tradition with us. That feels really nice. The main guy of the band, it doesn't help, he's fucking gorgeous. Like that's a good looking man. I'm not of that persuasion, but okay, that's pretty.
You
good.
can appreciate human
no,
beauty.
I'm like shit. All right, I get it. I get why people are attracted to you. I understand.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it felt very authentic.
It's very authentic.
Yeah. A lot of like connection to nature, and like obviously the wolf is like very sacred, and like all of those things.
And that comes from like the Scandinavian black metal guys who are going out into the woods, and when you go out in the snow, a lot of it's about relationships with that stuff, that being in that environment. You have a band like Immortal, whose all their songs are about these like frost giant legends that come from a dark realm of pure, of absolute darkness, and will usher in cold that'll even freeze time and prevent light and dark from even working. And it's like, because they live in the ice, like up in a world of nothing but ice is where these guys are from, and frozen lakes and everything. So that's what they know. They're going to sing about that element and create their own mythology around it, which is kind of fun. And Blackbraid is fantastic. So
yeah, those were really amazing albums. I'll have them in the show notes so you can also listen and share in this experience. But when I was growing up in the music scene, there was like I don't even know why, but there was a really big emphasis in like whether or not you're a poser.
Oh, poser,
Yeah, like you're a poser, you don't really like it, you're just trying to get on the hype train. I was going to say, to you, does it matter if someone is actually like occult believing or if they're just indulging in the aesthetic?
No, I mean, if you're going around like wearing, it's one thing to be like, all right, I'm going to go listen to music and enjoy it and enjoy the music. That's great. And I have like my record collection. I have like, Christian gospel records I actually do enjoy. I think they're very good. They do some interesting stuff. There's some ones that have like the really weird funk parts. I'm like, this is really cool. You got to listen to this part. It's kind of cool. Does that mean I have to be of that faith? No, it doesn't mean I have to be of that faith to enjoy that. To appreciate the artistry of what they're doing. Now, if I go around and start wearing like, the ensembles of the religions, I'm like, okay, and I'm trying to like where I would be identified as, that's a different story to me. Appropriation is in regard, or just using it as like, not even to say appropriate, it doesn't have to go as far as, I'm sorry, it's appropriation, but it can go to the point of like me just like representing myself as such. Appropriation is where I'm trying to take it and make it my own. I feel where this is just me going and representing like I'm in this, but no, you get people like, you're wearing the thing. I think what a poser is, if anything, is like when, if you're wearing like if you're wearing like a Nirvana shirt and you've never listened to Nirvana and you can't tell me like about Nirvana to some regard or what they mean to you, then it's like, well, what is the deal? Just use like the shirt, the design of it. I don't know, that's kind of weird to me. That always strikes me as weird when people do that, but as being a poser, it's like I don't. If you're showing up to shows, if you're paying your money, if you're giving the bands money through like merch, through record sales, then I don't think you're a poser. If you're actually like supporting them, I think the posers are the guys that just sit there and just like bitch about it also too. So they can be really knowledgeable in music, but they don't actually put their money where their mouth is too often, or participate in the thing with their money, or just going on forums or sharing the stuff or whatever. So I don't know. I'm not sure. Poser is a weird term, but yeah, I remember that term's been around for a long time.
Yeah. And I know that there's a saying in, especially like that heavy metal community, if it's too loud, you're too old.
Too loud, too old. Yeah. That one, I don't know about that one. I will say, like, man, earplugs are the shit, dude. Like, my dad has, like, really bad hearing, and I'm terrified of losing my hearing. And so I do a lot to preserve it. Earplugs all the time. Bailey, who like grew up in my co-host who grew up in a family who was very oriented towards music, was like, yeah, I've been wearing earplugs since I was a baby, or head over the ear stuff, and it's like, yeah, keep your ears safe and everything. So we're like, yeah, 100%. Like, but that said, though, if you mean by loud in terms of like the noise elements of it, there's so much going on. A lot of it's interesting with music is like you got to find that thing to latch onto, that first little point, and stop. Like, I'm going to grab this. And I'm going to hear for that. And that was one lesson I picked up from, I'm an okay fan of his. I think he does fine work, but Anthony Fantano does those really great music reviews. And one thing I did pick up from him that I like a lot is like, when you're listening to something new, I'm not sure, I'm having a hard time. Find one thing in that song and latch onto that, and then understand that, then listen to it again and see where you can branch out from there. And I think that's a really good way to like, engage in any kind of artwork or film, books, whatever it is. Just find that one little thing you can latch onto and try to branch out from that.
Yeah. I agree. The people that are like this loud hippie shit, like I'm just writing it all off because I don't understand it. It's like, no, give it a chance.
Yeah.
Like there are so many different types of metal. It's not just like screamo or like this preconceived notion of like,
stuff. Some of it's very intricate. That was one thing that really got me about when I was into power metal, is how intricate it can be. Rhapsody of Fire is a very intricate band. Blind Guardian is a very intricate band. Hearing how much care is put into it. But yeah, there's some stuff that's just straight up mindless. And I've listened to that stuff before in the past, and it's fun, but I can't do it for too much, because at some point I'm like, well, I need some like real like vitamins or some like sustenance out of this. I need to get some sort of like real I need to get something real out of it.
Yeah. So I know that you can appreciate and find beauty in like different bands, different albums, but if someone just had to start with one,
like a cult record,
I
got the one right here. I was dying to talk about these guys. We're going to talk about the Devil's Blood.
Ooh.
Did you listen to this one at all?
That one, I don't think I had time.
Okay, so this is the Devil's Blood are gone, and we'll talk about why that is. So the main guy is this guy Salim, and his sister Frida is the singer. And on the album, she's listed as her title on the album. She's listed as the Mouth of Satan. And the reason is that Salim was he's no longer with us. Was probably schizophrenic. And believed that Satan talked to him, and he believed he could get it out through the music, and he did. If you go watch the performances, it is like he's possessed.
Wow.
And it's amazing. But he's very, very nice guy. When I've talked to this met him or seen him like live, so he's one of the sweetest people. I've seen interviews. He's a very sweet person. But these albums are some of the best like occult meditations. It's really kind of 70s vibe. It's very big. This album, the Thousandfold Epicenter, is one of my favorites. On the Wings of Glory is a huge song here. They do some covers of one of their first kind of bigger singles is a cover of Rocky Erickson's White Faces, if you're familiar with Rocky, but he was also an artist in the 60s, 70s up until a few years ago when he passed away, that was also schizophrenic and believed that like these things were talking to him, and kind of got it out through music. They're really interesting stuff, but I really can't say enough good things about the Devil's Blood. And shout out to my buddy Karmazid who did this, who did the sigil here too. Mm-hmm. But it's you get the sigil with like the Alpha and Omega and the 666 in it with like the down. I mean, this is a wild sigil, but this is absolutely brilliant album. I think it's actually very easy to listen to. It's not going to sound how you think it's going to sound. Mm-hmm. You think it's going to come and sound like it's like it is high flying. It is very like glorious. It's very like it's such a high to listen to it. I fucking love the Devil's Blood so much. That's a band that I really miss. And they've been trying to do a few like spin-offs here since Salim passed away, but none of them have really picked up as that magic is. But I'll send you a link to like a performance of theirs where they're like all the members of the band are like covered in blood, like doing the stuff, and it's like they are what also their sound is what ghosts wish they could be. There's a lot of bands I think Ghost could wish could be, and I can get into that. That's a whole other conversation. That's an interesting point too. I was thinking about that too. Is like Ghost is a band that has this huge aesthetic of like this satanic kind of church. None of it's like, it's all aesthetics. There's no Survive Sport isn't buying that stuff. The guys that started it, they were in a band before that called Magna Carta Cartel, which just sounds exactly like Ghost. Ghost is more downtuned and heavier.
Yeah.
And then they sue each other and all this stuff. But it's and they were like, oh, we start a satanic band and just like have like a cool like aesthetic, and they did, and it's very successful. That's a great aesthetic. Don't get me wrong, it's a great show. But that's a band I think I just their albums I don't enjoy as much as I did the first two, and it's like, but their show's great. Like they're performers. But
they're performers.
But it's none of it's like they've created this own mythology that's just kind of exists. Where like Blood Ceremony is kind of drawing on like these other things. Fun fact too: Blood Ceremony and Ghost's first label, Rise Above, was the same label as Blood Ceremony. So there's a lot of overlap here. But yeah, no, it's just kind of interesting. This what Ghost does is interesting. But I think people like look at a Ghost to try to find spirituality through Ghost. I don't think you're gonna find it because it's very shallow.
Yes, yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. They are a riot live. I think they're a great band live, but it's not a real thing. It's a movie.
They're entertainers.
They're entertainers. Yeah.
They're selling a fantasy.
Right, and they're kind of running with the Sacred Three. The Omen, The Exorcist, and Rosemary's Baby kind of theme stuff like that, and kind of spinning. They're kind of taking those and running those to a big conclusion. It's fun. It's entertaining. But those are just movies. I mean, they're just entertainment. That's all it is. Yeah, it's good. But if you're into it, you're into it. And there's an occult element there, but it's not like grounded in any real thing. It's just It's just fun. I mean, it's just fun. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I've been dying to ask someone in the scene. It's not related to anything we talk, or maybe it is. I don't know. What is up with the metal font? That's like a bunch of like scribbles, and you could barely read it. It looks like
that stuff. The metal. Okay, so you're talking about like these big logos that are kind of like all over the place, where it's like you can't read it.
Yeah, you can't read it.
So
it looks like spiderweb.
Okay, so that largely comes out of black metal and the guys up in Scandinavia, and there's like a lot of kind of stories about behind that house. One of them is this. You'll actually like the story. So these guys are living out in the woods, like they're out in the kind of country, and there's just snow and everything. And they'd be like, "Well, I gotta name this band something." So what they'll do is they'll go out in the forest, they'll lay under a tree. And if you look at the logos, a lot of them look like sticks overlaid each other because they stare up at the sky through the trees until they see what the name of their band is in the branches.
That's so cool.
Now that's what it's supposed to be. Now a lot of people don't do that. And it's just kind of make it scribbled up. It's just kind of but it is a cult because it's like only I can read this, or only certain people can read this.
Wow. Yeah.
That logo and everything. And you see there's even kind of an escalation of it. I'll show you with bands that are into kind of like this kind of newer I learned the term recently called Keller synth style, where it's like they do these kind of like logos that are very like they look like this.
Yes.
This is like the newer style of it versus like that kind of stick style.
Yeah.
And for those that can't see it, the best way to describe it is like it's kind of a combination of like Coptic, like I'd say like Orthodox Church like iconography with like circuitry. It's way all over the place. And there's a band called Keys to the Astral Gates and Mystic Doors. That is the name of the band out of Madison, Wisconsin. And so it's this weird kind of like pushback. They're trying to do different types of logos. But it's become it's been very broken in the mainstream. I see bands that have those kind of logos that are not of that style at all, and it's a way to kind of identify each other. But yeah, a lot of it was like these guys were kind of like you want to make it look like cracked, you want to make it look destroyed.
Yes.
And that's what they were going for. And now it's just kind of like, well, I can know what that means. You don't know what that means. So now that's how we have a bond, and that's standard like cult behavior, not a cult, but a cult behavior is like we have our shared thing, and that's how a lot of entertainers thrive on cult behavior and leverage them, which is really handy. I mean, it works.
Yeah. I think the top 3 points that I would want folks to take away from this episode is that 1, metal is not a monolith, both in like sound, purpose, the depth of occult. 2, to just give it a chance because there are so many different types of metal. And then anything else that you would want people to take away just like as a final point?
I think the diversity is really up there. So yeah, the diversity big. Diversity is diverse. So metal, there's like bands that have members of different ethnicities. So like I was talking about a band called Early Moods to you when we first talked about this. They are an Afro-Latino band out of Los Angeles. The best way to describe it is think of Black Sabbath was Afro-Latino and way more satanic. Really, really good stuff. But if you looked at them, like I have no idea they're gonna sound like that. It's also diverse in terms of spaces. So yeah, I even have some black metal records from bands in Iraq, which is kind of a trip. But you also have bands not just from like around the world, but different sounds. You have bands that have trans members. There's a really good band called Sonia that's fantastic. With trans members, there's just so much out there. Whatever you're kind of into, there's something for you. Even like there's a band I really enjoy called Witch Hazel, which is one of the few Christian bands I really enjoy. Like where it's like they actually are of their faith, and they're sharing kind of like these old school kind of like Christian kind of like medieval kind of like kind of like stories and everything. It's really fun. I really enjoy it, and they're of that faith, and they dress with that faith and everything. So they put their money where their mouth is, and I'm like, these guys are actually good. Like they're legitimately good. So that's kind of my thing. Is like I think there's something out there for everyone. And you got to find that one thing you kind of latch onto, and then just go look through the linear notes. Go pull them up on Discogs. Go find the things where you can branch out and get more and more and more. I got into Devil's Blood because there was a band I liked a lot on the same label. And I was like, hey, what are these guys about? You know, oh, let's go check them out. Check them out. There they go. I like them. Okay, so I can branch out. And that's just how you do it. But a lot of it is, and I think this is really interesting, is this kind of intention that you have to have it actually, finding the new thing. You can't just be like have the thing served to you by a computer. Mm-hmm. You need to be the one to go find it. You need to be the one to articulate your taste. You're the one who needs to be able to go, I like this because of this point, not just I can tolerate this and not put next on it.
Yeah.
I do have two more things I want to do. Can we do? Okay.
Yeah.
So one is we were talking about spell casting in music, and I do want to bring up one song by a band called Helloween. They're one of the progenitors of power metal from the 80s. They're still around. They're a great live band, and they have a song called Heavy Metal is the Law. And I wanted to read some lyrics because they're a very positive band, like very uplifting. The lead guitarist Kai Hansen at the time, when you hear him play, it feels like he's trying to break free of like reality. He wants to. He always talks about breaking free a lot. A lot of songs about freedom, but he has this one song called "Heavy Metal is the Law." I want to read some lyrics from it and kind of go from here. All right, you mind if I read this real quick?
Yeah,
all
please.
Right. He says. Power burning, brains out, united Metallians ready to strike, white heat, red hot mayhem. If you don't feel it, you don't understand. There's nothing else in the world that will bring it down, We will play our wildest step to all around. We need it as a liquid in our veins instead of blood. And here's the chorus, one of my favorite choruses. Heavy metal is the law that keeps us all united free. A law that shatters earth and hell. Heavy metal can't be beaten by any dynasty. We are all wizards fighting with our spell.
I actually listened to that song as I was getting my glam ready, and I really liked it. I was like, I like this guy.
It feels positive.
Yes,
like you feel like enthralled.
Yeah.
And so in my opinion, that I actually think he is casting a spell in that regard, because every time I hear it, I get goosebumps. I feel pumped up. I feel better. I feel positive. Yeah. And that's such a positive message where he's like, yeah, dude, we're all in it. We're going to sing this song together and everything. And then my last thing is, I forgot to do it earlier in the pod, I had a gift for you. I was going to bring you. I'm getting ready to go do one of the Ren Fair, and I have the Ren Fairs. I have a wizard costume. I dress up as a whole wizard thing, and you always want to kind of role play it and have fun. And I distribute these little spell scrolls that I sealed up.
Hell yeah! And
then to tie that to our to the topic, that sigil on there. My Cauldron Tower is my company, Cauldron Tower. We do shirts and a bunch of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was, I have the original of that hand drawn at home by Jinx Dawson herself. So
really?
Yeah, Jinx did one of my company logos. And do enjoy that whole thing. I don't know what spell it is. I made like 60 or 70 of those this weekend for the Ren Fair.
That is so cool.
But yeah, I thought you'd get a kick out of that. And it's fun. And I think that, what am I doing? I give that to someone at the Ren Fair. I put some intent in it. I had some fun with it. Yeah, and they had a nice day. They had something cool to hold on to and maybe feel better. Got part of the fantasy or got to escape a little bit. And just, it's cool.
Yeah. So as we're recording this, the new moon in Cancer just passed, and we're in like the countdown before eclipse season, where it's like if you need to manifest some shit, do it now, because eclipse season, you got to take a break. So I'm very excited to check this out. But I did want to ask, we did mention that with metal music, you don't necessarily have to be occult. No. You could just entertain the occult aesthetic, and it's still totally valid. But are you an occultist or a practitioner, or what is your personal relationship to the occult? Or are you just a fan of the aesthetic? That's also valid.
It's a sometimes it's there for you, sometimes it's not, and sometimes I feel it, sometimes I don't. To me, I think that there is a lot of magic in the world. I teach writing, and writing is fundamentally spell casting. To spell is to spell is to take letters and put them in the proper order to get a certain meaning, to derive someone else's understanding or another, and that's what spellcasting is trying to put intent to things to a certain order to get a certain result. And so I don't, so in that regard, yes, and I think there's something magical about it, because there's an element of writing and how we kind of work with it cognitively and how it works in the world that we just don't understand fully. And so that mystical element is really interesting. By all means, we understand quite a bit of it, but it's still, there's something kind of intriguing and magical about it. And so, yeah, I'm very much about like an enchantment of the world, and the like, and I don't know about like, as far as like understanding it, yeah, I've certainly studied things, I've read things, I think I have a knowledge of some stuff here. We didn't even get into like thelemic like relationships with music too much. We talked about Crowley a little bit, but we didn't get into that much of the religion of it all. But it's all over the place, and for me, I hear the music, I'm like, this is kind of fun, this is kind of interesting. And yeah, I think, Helloween, heavy metal law, they cast a spell, and I vibe with that. I like that. You go to a show, it is this ritual. It is this thing that comes over you, and it brings you in, and you commune with the band, you commune with the audience. You're both performing for each other very much in regards to that. And so, yeah, I'm totally like, I totally believe in that power of it all. As far as being an occultist, I'm still unclear what an occultist is. That's actually a really interesting question. Is it someone that believes in it? Is it someone that practices it? Is it like, because I know people that believe but don't practice. I mean, we both sure know plenty of people that practice but don't believe. That's a different story. And it isn't just relayed to non-Abrahamic religions. I think a lot of it can be, there's like Christian mysticism. There's all kinds of different structures out there. And I think we should be open to thinking, okay, maybe this is how things are. Maybe I can, my interpretation drifts a little bit here or there. But I don't know if I'd call myself that. I'm not sure if I'd go so far. And I feel like that's a title that one would have to kind of like earn. By all means, I am an occult music fan. I love occult music by all means. But I don't know if that makes me an occultist. And so I don't feel I'm in a position to state that one way or the other.
Yeah. Totally fair answer. And I think that non-answer is an answer to me. Like, it helps me understand you. You appreciate the energy exchange with words, community, things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, we talk, one of the things we talk about as a vinyl record collector is like I'm going to go home and do the ritual. What's the ritual? I'm going to go spin the black circle. and that's what it is. The black circle is the record, right? It's what you do. Yeah. It's a ritual. You're going to derive. I can go and play that stuff on my phone, no problem. But to go home and put on my record player as a ritual where I'm revering the music. I also know that I bought this. It's someone got money from it.
Yeah.
So I have a community with the artist to some degree, in some regard.
Yeah.
Maybe through capitalism, but it's still a relationship.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge. Really quickly, is there anything that you or your podcast are doing soon that you want to give a shout out to?
We got some new episodes coming out. I don't know when this is going to air, but we got More Than Metal. You can just find us anywhere there. morethanmetal.podbean.com is our main site, but you can find us through a link tree. You can find me anywhere through Only Play Wizards. Just look up Only Play Wizards, one word, and you'll find me really easily.
And I'll have everything linked in the show notes.
I have my company Cauldron Tower, where we work with heavy metal artists and even occultists such as Jinx Dawson. That was a weird one. That would happen. I got lucky on that one. And where we do kind of cool shirts and stuff like that. I'm a big gamer. I'm always posting stuff on Instagram and Blue Sky. But my podcast, we got some new episodes coming out. Right now we're kind of on Bailey's moving. And so we don't have anything new recorded. We have a new episode that came out this week, and we have another episode next week. But then after that, we have to record some new ones. So, but nothing too special we have on the horizon. I could really talk about. But you can always find me at any local Ren fairs around here too. I'm always usually out. So
yeah, and you have a whole episode catalog for people to binge while Bailey moves and stuff. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah, this was so fun.
Thanks for coming. Yeah. Let me tell you, thank you. And I'm gonna point to David. Just want to point to him. David exists, people. He when he's on camera. Thank you guys for coming out to my hometown and hanging out and doing some cool stuff here. It's a good vibe.
Yeah, and hopefully we will have more collaborations in the future, but happy to meet another metal fan. I actually haven't met too many out here, so
they're around.
Yeah, I just haven't met them yet, but yeah, thank you so much. All right, so make sure to check out More Than Metal, follow Only Play Wizards, and check out all the links and all the albums in the show notes. All right, thanks everyone. Take care. Bye.
Later.